Hello friends. Have you ever thought of something that makes you feel very uneasy and you find it really hard to stop thinking about it? And the more you think about it, the worse it feels. And the worse it feels, you keep creating worst case scenarios. And the worst case scenario you think of, the worse you feel. And this thinking and feeling cycle just keeps repeating itself. And it got to a point that it's so bad that you feel like your whole world is gonna collapse, right? We've all been there. It's madness. And have you ever wondered if these thoughts make us feel so miserable? Why can't we stop thinking about it? Why? Why is it so hard to stop thinking these negative thoughts? It's because emotions and feelings are addictive. When we have a thought, the thought releases a chemical in the brain, and the chemical makes us feel a certain way. And the feeling incurred is the chemical state of the body. When we think of a good thought, we feel happy. When we think of a negative thought, we feel bad. Let's label happy thought as level A, and then let's label negative stressful thoughts as level B. And when someone is constantly living in a negative and stressful environment, the brain is pressed to release stressful chemicals the whole time, right? And the body in time gets used to it. So the body in turn gets downgraded to level B because that's the state that it's being fed to constantly. And once the body learns that, okay, level B is where my homeostasis is, then it is looking for, it will start expecting that kind of chemicals to be released to stay at its equilibrium. So habit is something that you do over and over again repeatedly, and then it becomes so ingrained in the body that it remembers how to do it without you having to use much brain power or thinking. When you first start making coffee, for example, you have to get the cup, right? Get your coffee out, make the coffee, pour it into your cup, add milk and sugar and whatnot. It's a whole series of process that you have to think about when you first start drinking coffee. But over time, because it's such a habit, you do it every morning, that the body remembers it so well that it does not need you to manually having to pay attention to it because it's so automatic. And when you are doing the action of making coffee, there are neurons in the brain that are formed. The coffee making circuitry will need to be made in the brain so that it can slowly, with repetition, become a habit in the brain. And negative thinking is the same thing. You think of a thought, it releases certain type of chemical, and the chemical makes you feel a certain way. And if we are thinking of the same thoughts day in and day out repeatedly, the neurons will be formed in our brain in a circuitry to formulate that specific thinking pattern. Even though we don't like it, or we don't like how it makes us feel, but we cannot control it because it's so automatic, just like every other habit that we have. Addiction, it's something that we feel a very strong urge to and do not have control over. Negative emotion is a state that our body is conditioned to want to live at. And whenever we operate from that state, our brain just goes there automatically without us being able to control it. Then that means we are addicted to that emotional state. We get addicted to feelings and emotions that we don't even like. We trained ourselves to think negatively. Then maybe we can train ourselves to think differently. Do you think that's possible? With neuroplasticity, we can all change how we feel. It's okay to react because we're human beings and we have feelings. I think the fundamental question is how long we're gonna react. If we think of a negative thought and we allow ourselves to commiserate in that state, having a dark cloud over us for a whole day. But if we have the ability to switch from where we don't want to where we want to be, I think that's called a victory. First, we have to catch our thoughts, right? And when we catch our thoughts, we have to remind ourselves that it's just an old habit. I've been conditioned this way. I could choose to think differently right now. Usually, a good reminder or a good indicator will be helpful to switch that mindset. For example, for me, whenever I find myself in that negative state, I will snap my finger and that sound will switch me back to the present. Running, swimming, working out, reading, breathing really helps too, and meditation. All these are very, very healthy ways to switch our states. One of the reasons why we didn't learn how to regulate our emotions is because we weren't taught. Now that we are older, and if we want to choose and live a different life, it is important to regulate our emotions. When we catch our negative thinking pattern and interrupt the pattern, it will slowly disintegrate and disconnect the neural circuitry in the brain regarding that thinking pattern. And in time, with practice and with repetition, the whole circuitry is going to break down, and lo and behold, that circuitry is going to disappear and this thinking pattern will no longer exist. That's how amazing our human mind is. I think that is one of the most important skills to regulate our emotions, because things will always come in our lives and we'll always react. Friends, if there's one thought that you want to be aware of and get rid of, what would that be? I hope you liked today's video, and I'll see you next time.